This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. It is 6:03 p.m. I'll start this meeting. I am Steve Knight, Chair of the Rhome Planning and Zoning Commission. Like I say, it was 6:03 p.m. Monday, June 7th, 2021. I will call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Rhome Planning and Zoning Commission to order. This meeting is being conducted via video and telephone conference per the governor's office. I will now call roll real quick to establish a quorum. If you just say A or nay, if you're not here. Commissioner Steve Knight, here. Commissioner Thomas Cannon.
Here.
Commissioner Christy Narron.
Here.
Commissioner Christy King.
Here.
And Commissioner Sarah Hawes.
Here.
Thank you very much. Haven't done this for a couple months. I'm probably going to mess up a couple times. At this time, we'll go to public presentations and input. The commission is not permitted to take action or discuss any presentations made to the commission at this time concerning an item not listed on the agenda. The commission will hear comments on specific agenda items during this designated time. Request form must be filled out and submitted via email to City Secretary, cityofrome.com prior to 4 p.m. on the meeting date to be recognized. We will also limit speakers to 3 minutes each. And I will turn to Shannon Montgomery, our City Secretary, ask if we have any public presentations.
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to our regular agenda, old business. Item A, discussion and any necessary action regarding the minutes of March 1st, 2021, Planning and Zoning Commission regular session. And I will ask all the commissioners if they've had a chance to read those and see if there's any changes to be made. It was a pretty short night. Anyone? Okay, with that, I'll go ahead and make the motion that we make a motion that we accept those minutes. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Got a motion second from Thomas. I'll run down the line again. Steve Knight, aye. Commissioner Thomas Cannon.
Aye.
Commissioner Christy Narron.
Aye.
Commissioner Christy King.
Aye.
And Commissioner Sarah Hawes.
Aye.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to our public hearing. Item B, the Rhome Planning and Zoning Commission to conduct a public hearing to consider a request for a carport, legal property being acres 1.001, Lot 8, Block D, Subdivision Alliance Estates, PH2, Abstract A-743, Smith CSL, also known as 1107 Metal Arc Drive, Rome, Texas, 76078. It is now 6:07 p.m. on June 7th, 2021. I will open the public hearing at this time. Anyone wishing to make a public comment, please direct your comments towards the commission and provide relevant factual information which is pertinent to this application. Also, we will limit all comments to 3 minutes each for the purpose of maintaining fluency of this meeting. Thank you. At this time, I would like to invite the applicant, Mr. Green, I believe he's on with us, if he would like to say anything at this point. Mr. Green? You might be muted. We do have Mr. Green online.
He does show muted.
Mr. Green, good evening.
To unmute a phone, I believe it's *69. Oh, there you
Is
go.
that better? Can you hear me now?
We hear you now, sir. Go right ahead.
Okay, I apologize. When we originally bought this property back in July, we bought it from Miracle Homes here. This whole block, everybody did. Well, we were under the understanding they told everybody the same story, that could build whatever they wanted. So I built the carport. I was not aware that I had to go through a bunch of other stuff to get it done. That's why I spent $5,000 on this carport. If you've got photos of it, it's extremely nice. I mean, and me and Paula, we're getting close to retirement, so we're trying to get everything while we got money and while I'm still able to work, and get our home fixed up for us. And that's why we chose here. We lived in Saginaw for 33 years, and it just outgrew us out there. I mean, you can't hardly get around there no more. So we sold out over there and moved over here and try to start over. And it's kind of hard when you're 60 something years old to start over, but we're doing our best. I know that. And we really, if any of y'all have seen the photos of our home, you'll see what I mean. We started out with a dirt field, and you can see what we got now in less than a year. And I'm kind of old, and I did most of this work. Me and her did ourselves. The driveway, the landscaping, all that. We did everything ourselves because we're poor. We don't have the money to do anything else. I mean, we're doing the best we can, and that's why I'm asking. And that's why I went around to all my neighbors around here, this whole block, and everybody agreed that they don't have a problem with my carport. They said it's the most beautiful one in here. And we didn't understand because the guy directly behind us has one in front of his garage. I mean, that's what kind of threw us off. That's the reason why I decided to put mine there. And since we put it up there, we've had 4 hailstorms. So I'm glad we did, because we got 2 brand new vehicles that we plan on retiring with. And we'd like them to stay nice, because that's going to be our last cars, is the plans. If good Lord willing, we stay alive that long. I mean, that's kind of that's out of our control. That part of it is, but we're doing the best we can. I mean, so whatever it takes, we need to try to resolve this problem. And I'd like to keep our carport. We both would. So I mean, any feedback I can get from anybody else, and I mean, anybody around here, if you sent letters out, they'll probably tell you the same thing. And they said if they needed any more support, they would come up and be in my back. They would back me on all of this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Green. I appreciate that. I'll now turn to our city secretary to read any comments sent in and to acknowledge anyone wishing to speak. Shannon?
Thank you, sir. We did receive a few. I'll go ahead and read them in the order that I received them. The first one from Mr. Joe Green, who's just on the speaking. He is, of course, in favor, and his comments were, was told I could build what I wanted when I bought property from Miracle Homes. Didn't know about the permit required, but he is aware now. The next one is from Paula Lampley, also the applicant. She's, of course, in favor, and her comments were, didn't know Rhome required permits in this area until I received the orange notice on my door. Next one was Darlene Maddox of 1119 Meadowlark. She is also in favor. Her comments were, this owner has made significant improvements to his property, enhancing the aesthetic of both his property and the neighborhood as a whole. The carport blends seamlessly with other structures on the lot and appears to be professionally constructed. It also appears to me to be proportionally aligned and compatible in design with the house and the garage. My husband and I live just 3 houses down from this property and have no objection at all, and in fact, encourage the granting of this carport request. Next one was Frederick Therault, and he's at 1102 Meadowlark Drive. He is also in favor. And his comments were acceptable under following conditions: professional, compliant construction, design, colors consistent with existing structures, maintains acceptable setback from street. We also received one from Danette and Johnny Willis at 1111 Meadowlark Drive, and he is also in favor. And his comments were, I don't understand why the city would have a problem with a property owner setting up a carport on their own property that they paid for. Leave them be and let them be responsible for what they own. You shouldn't dictate what others can do. So we received those, and also from the applicant, we received a petition that had 10 names on it. They were also in favor. So I'm turning it back to you, Chair Knight.
We have nobody online then for a hearing?
No, as far as no, I don't know if anybody else is online or not, sir.
Okay. Nobody online then, Shannon?
It does not appear so.
Okay, well then it is now 6:14 PM on Monday, June 7th, 2021. I will close the public hearing on a request for a carport. And we will move on to our regular agenda, new business, item C, discussion and any necessary action considering a recommendation to council regarding a request for a carport, legal property being acres 1.001, lot 8, block D, subdivision, Alliance Estates, phase 2, abstract A-743 Smith, CSL, also known as 1107 Metal Arc Drive, Rome, Texas, 76078. And to start, I've got a quick statement I'll just read on this. And in fact, I'll open this up first to City Administrator for any staff reports on this application. Cynthia?
Thank you, Chair Knight. So as you, commissioners, as you know, we do have ordinances that do regulate carports in our city, and the process by which someone would go about having one in it entails submitting a special use permit.
Yes, could we get
Yes.
everybody to mute if they're not speaking?
Yeah, I'm getting some background noise. And I included that in the packet. Really, there's two big issues when you all are looking at carports, and that's going to be 10 feet from the side property line and then 5 feet from the front easement. I still have some feedback, sorry. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, but we do have some feedback. Mr. Green, are you still live to talking?
No, I think he just muted, so
Okay, great. Then we should be good here. It's
okay.
quiet.
All right. So, like I said, two main requirements: 10 feet from the side property line, 5 feet from the front right-of-way easement. And this property does meet both. The carport does meet both of those requirements. I think it was just a misunderstanding that didn't realize he was inside the city limits and what that process was. So other than that, they meet, the requirements for that. So you all have approved these in the past. And so that's really all there is on this one. You have the pictures there. He did submit a site plan. All the permits and the building permit has been pulled and paid for at this time. And if there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Cynthia. I'll just start with my own statement here. During my time as a member of this commission, we have had several requests and public hearings concerning applications for a carport. The consensus seems to follow with what our city staff presents to us as such, as if the application meets all setbacks and easement restrictions. We have also listened to both written and in-person comments concerning the requests, and if these comments are for or against the application during the public hearing portion of each meeting. As I understand, the citizen making this request was not aware that they needed to inquire with the staff at City Hall to see what was required from the city before constructing a carport. With that said, we as a Planning and Zoning Commission are only tasked to conduct both a public hearing and our own discussion amongst ourselves with the information given to us by the city staff, and to then make a recommendation to the Rome City Council for denial of request, approval of request, with or without added comments to the request. And with that, I'll open this up to each of you if you want to chime in and make any comments about it.
Does the meet the construction ordinances, like the way it's bolted into the ground, fastened to the house? Does it meet all of those ordinances? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Would it be possible for us to see the pictures? I'm looking in my packet, but I'm having a hard time. I don't see any pictures? Mr. Green mentioned that there were photos
Yeah,
submitted.
I can try something here for you.
Yeah, I
The
did not
pictures,
download those to show.
they start on page 12 of the packet.
I don't know if
Okay,
that
I
helps.
just wanted, okay, I'm with you now.
Oh, there it is. That's pretty good. It looks like a real nice structure. It's painted the same color as the background and looks like it's made of good, strong steel. Looks
I
like
guess
it's in the garage.
I would like to say I'm still fairly new at this, right? And so I'm trying to understand, and I do see the ordinances and the things that would allow and wouldn't allow a carport. In my mind, I don't see anything wrong with this on this acre lot, and it seems still a very rural type subdivision. But I would like to, so I would have no problem approving this. I would like to request though from council that maybe they tell us when they interpret how they interpret and what their vision is for the different subdivisions, because I know that we've seen requests from neighborhoods like Crown Point, and that is very different, right? You could put 4 houses from Crown Point on this lot. And so to have that side by side with 4 carports, that's going to paint a very different picture. And so my request then would just be, I'm more than willing to, recommend to council that we send this on to approve, but I would like some additional information regarding council and the vision for carports in some other subdivisions. If the thing is that we're just going to approve every time they come to us because that's what we've done previously, does that make sense? What
Yeah,
I'm saying?
Because
let me interject.
perhaps we just need a better explanation of the city ordinance pertaining to carports
So,
and how it came to be. If you would, Cynthia?
yeah, let me just respond to that, Christy, and I appreciate that. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, and I think, the council will probably be happy to weigh in on it. But what I would say is that the city ordinances apply equally across the board. So that's how our ordinances are written. So one caveat, and Bywell is not that caveat, actually, it's going to be more Old Town Rome. So they have an overlay district, and you will see that there's a mention of it in 33A.1 in the Old Town Rome overlay district, where it discusses carports. And really, the bottom line, the outtake from even that is that as long as they meet these certain requirements, which I said the big ones are the 10 feet from the property line and 5 feet from that front easement, they are allowed by ordinance. So I don't think by ordinance the city really differentiates between the different subdivisions. We do have 5 different distinct subdivisions: Bywell, of course, Crown Point, Ellis, Chisholm, and Old Town Rome. But the ordinance really applies equally across the board. And as of yet, the council hasn't taken any action to treat, subdivisions differently at this point. So I hope that answers your question. When you say a special use permit, all it does, it just highlights, there's an extra process that they go through. It doesn't mean like you're not making a variance. There have been times when they haven't met the 10-foot requirement. And so council has provided essentially a variance to that requirement. But in this case, that's not even what is in question.
So Cynthia, on page 10 in our packet, when we're looking at that chart, so the columns, SF, help me remember, SFLD, SF30, SF25, SF20.
Those are single family.
Okay, and what are the different the LD 30, 25, 20, 15.
So LD means low density, and 30 is basically 30 square foot. And 25 is 25,000. 30,000 square foot, 25,000 square foot, 20 is 20,000 square foot, 15 is 15,000 square foot for the lot.
For the lot.
Right, and then SF10 is, 10,000 square foot. So one
So
acre.
something that might be helpful for me as just a layperson is like, what does, because like we have a half acre lot. I don't know what our lot is in square footage.
You're in SF 25,000.
Okay, so that would be helpful to me there to know like lot sizes so that we can just kind of, so that we can know.
Yeah, in your book, you do have the ordinance there, and I think it's spelled out in the zoning district itself, so it defines what that is. So they're at least 25,000 square feet. So Chisholm, for example, Chisholm is single family 25. That means 25 is at least 25,000 square foot, as is Ellis. Okay, Crown
Mhm.
Point is 6, so those lots are at least 6,000 square feet. Old Town Rome is a mix, anywhere from 6, 7.5. There's some that are in there 15, very few, but and there's some that are 10. Actually, Bywell, and we're going to get into that because Bywell does have a unique history, and I'm going to talk more about that. But it is single family, but it's actually zone plan development. And they are, 1+ acre home sites out there.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. I appreciate it.
Sure.
You're welcome. I'll just go through you all. Mr. Cannon, any comments?
Nope. I'm good.
Okay. Christy King, or Christy Nairn, excuse me. And Sarah Haas?
No, sir. None.
Well, given we've had no responses that are against this request for a carport, my motion would be to recommend approval of this request to the council. Do I have a second on that?
Mm-hmm.
I have a second from Christy Nairn.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do another poll here. Commissioner Steve Knight, aye. Commissioner Thomas Cannon,
Aye.
Commissioner Christy Nairn,
Aye.
Commissioner Christy King,
Aye.
and Commissioner Sarah Haas.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. We'll pass that recommendation on to City Council, and we'll see what happens there, Mr. Green. Thank you very much. Okay. We'll move on to regular agenda item D, discussion on history of Bywell Estates plan development. And for this, I'll turn it back to our city administrator, Cynthia Northrup. Cynthia?
Thank you. I'm trying to share my screen here. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yes, I can hear and see.
Okay, I just want to make sure I didn't mute myself. Okay, so what I wanted to do was really take the opportunity to talk about, I'm sorry, I'm changing my screen a little bit. Bywell, I know some of the commission members were contacted by a resident. I will say Bywell, it is a unique community, and I think there's been quite a bit of confusion surrounding the community over the years. And so after, really researching it, going through all the documents, of course, talking with our attorney, I just wanted to take a little bit of time and give you a brief history of Bywell itself. So Bywell Estates, it began as a mobile home community in the unincorporated area. So it was not inside the city limits, it was outside the city limits. The original developer planned to develop the development in 3 phases, but was only able to complete phase 1. Now that doesn't mean that the others aren't, you know, in somebody else came in and started developing. So, but apparently he was only able to complete phase 1. In April of 1996, the city of Rome annexed the Bywell Estates into the city of Rome, and that's ordinance 96-8. And the way we just, for a fun fact, I guess, the way we number our ordinances is by year, and then the 8 really denotes that's the eighth ordinance we had that year. And so anytime you see an ordinance that's referenced this way, it's talking about the year of the ordinance and then what number it was as far as when it came online with the city. So here, this is not an official map. Okay, this is not an official plat, preliminary plat, anything. This was a map that I found in our files, probably provided maybe by the second developer, I'm not quite sure, but you can see phase 1 is the blacked in area. If you look to the right side of your screen, can you guys see my cursor? Can you see my mouse?
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am.
Okay, I'm not hearing anybody. Okay, so this is 114. So 114 is on the right side of that page. And you can see that right here. So this is Alliance Boulevard going into the development. So the blacked out portion you see is phase 1. The white portion here you see towards the front is phase 2. And Wade Greathouse was the developer of phase 2. He came in several years ago trying to start developing this, and I'm not going to get into that history, but it was already inside the city limits by that time. It is now, all the mobile homes are moved in on phase 2, and we are going through the process. We worked with the developer to accept the roads for maintenance, but we did not want to accept those roads for maintenance while he was still, you know, having heavy truck traffic come in and move all those mobile homes in. So he's actually had to kind of build the roads twice, to my understanding, and he is actually paid for. It's been raining ever since. It's really since the last week in April, actually. This has been scheduled, but the rain has been, so we haven't been able to. We've gone in there, done a checklist, and told him what he needs to do to bring these roads up to where we will accept them for maintenance. And he is complying with that, and he has paid the contractor to do that work. Phase 3 is on the back side. You will see also this park area. This park was dedicated to the city of Rome as a dedicated park. It's 39 acres, and this was included. We recently had a master parks plan, and this park was included in that. You'll see this little white sliver right here, and that is a separate park that has been pulled out and identified as a priority by the Parks Board after meeting with the consultant for the development of the Master Parks Plan. The Parks Board evaluated everything and said this is recommended that it be a neighborhood park, and so this is a priority that the Parks Board has recommended to council, and council has approved to be a priority to develop. And you can look at our master parks plan online, I believe. If not, I can get that to you. So last year we had fielded a interest from a developer who's interested in developing phase 3. And in fact, I've just recently heard from potential engineer. He will be onboarding, and so he did close on that property, and this will probably be developed shortly. Bywell was annexed in as a planned development district. Okay, so when it came in, the city annexed it. They zoned it as a planned development district by ordinance 9611. And I will go into defining a planned development district in a moment. But what was included in ordinance 96-11 was essentially there are deed restrictions and or HOA rules and regs. The HOA was dissolved before or after they annexed into the city, and the object at the time was to include a lot of those rules and regs in the ordinance itself. Okay, and that's what you see in 9611. All of these components, restrictions, whatever you want to call them, were all incorporated into the planned development district. So you'll see the first things, the first 6 are talking about it's going to be residential. There's just 1 or 2 lots that'll be commercial. Number 2 is all the subdivision is restricted to new double wide mobile homes. They must be skirted. And then you can see here on number 4, no building, auxiliary building, or any structure shall be erected, placed, or altered on any lot without prior approval from the Architectural Review Committee. So you can see where it still indicates that that was an HOA rule that was adopted into the ordinance in 9611. So it goes on. There are actually 27 tenants or components, if you will, for in ordinance 9611. Okay, and that was in 96. Well, in 2008, I think there's always been some confusion, and I think in 2008, in order to avoid that confusion, the council amended zoning ordinance 9611, and they reduced the 27 tenants or components of that ordinance to just 6. And you'll see that in ordinance 2008-01. So again, the intention was to maintain only the major tenants or components, and we'll go over those in detail, as requiring new mobile homes, for example, versus stick-built homes. And then to make sure that all the other City of Rome ordinances apply unless they conflict with tenants 1 through 6. Right now I'm looking at the presentation, so if you do have your hand up, just go ahead and interrupt me if you have a question, because I'm not seeing you all, just to let you know. Yeah, I've already talked about that one. So I just want to briefly, I think most of us are aware of this, but deed restrictions versus city ordinances. Deed restrictions are restrictions that stay with the land, and the enforcement of deed restrictions is not a city issue, it's a civil issue between homeowners. However, I think the lines got blurred because in ordinance 9611, there were several of those either deed restrictions and or HOA rules and regs that were codified within the 9611. So I think that kind of created some confusion there, but normally deed restrictions, if they're just deed restrictions, that's going to be a civil issue between homeowners. City ordinances are enforced by the city.
So Cynthia, a quick question there. With the deed restrictions, that can vary from community to community, right? To subdivision, or is it for the City of Rome?
Deed restrictions are in the deed of the property. So when you buy a property, there's a deed that goes with it. And if there's any deed restrictions, they'll be in that. And that's not something normally that the city would never get involved with. But again, I think when we originally annexed it, the residents out there were okay with annexation, but they wanted some of those things still to apply to their community. And so they took a lot of those, and they put it in ordinance 9611. I'm not sure if that answers your question. So there may be other homes that are in our community that may have deed restrictions in Chisholm or in Ellis. And if they do, those aren't things that the city will enforce.
I'm sorry, you said 9611. I think they kept some of those in that 2008, wasn't it?
Right, I'm going to get to that specifically.
Okay.
Yeah, I skipped over that slide. So let me get to that slide. So in 2008-01, you see Exhibit A. These are the 6 in long form. But essentially what it is, number 1 is going to be residential only, accepting specific partials for commercial, same as was in 9611. New double wide mobile homes only, same as 9611. All of these were in 9611. And must have skirting, must have 2 porches with handrails. They must have a detached garage. The septic must be designed by a registered engineer and permitted by Wise County, inspected annually. And then other than that, all other City of Rome ordinances apply. So I think there's several folks that have been out there for many years, and they are still under the impression that some of these other, I would say, 6, if they were in order, some of those other tenets or components of 9611 still apply, and they do not. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So they kept basically the main ones, and a lot of the things that if you read through all of them from 1 through 27, many of those things are things that we do address in our city ordinances. Some of them aren't, and they're very clearly HOA rules and regs, if you will. It's just like I'm in a subdivision right now, and it's a large subdivision, and they've got an HOA, and they've got rules and regs. So those apply to everybody because it's an HOA, but it's not something that the city is going to enforce. The city will only enforce something that is an ordinance. Cities don't enforce rules or regs. The confusion, I think, came about when they actually codified into an ordinance some of those HOA rules and regs and or deed restrictions, if that makes sense. So the only things, the 6, it's still going to be, new double wide mobile homes, skirting, porches, detached garage, septic, permitted by the county. So now getting to a planned development, to maybe to Christy King's point earlier, this is directly out of our zoning ordinance and our zoning districts under planned development. And I'm not going to read that, what I did on this next slide, but I just kind of broke it down and bullet pointed some of those things. So a planned development district is really used to permit new or innovative concepts in land development or utilization that's not permitted under other zoning districts. And so it's meant to be able to have some flexibility to look at a piece of land and develop it in one entire concept, like a master plan community, if you will, within a city. So you can look at all the components of a planned development in our zoning ordinance as a smorgasbord. So some of those things may be included, some may not be included. And we've had some of this conversation in the Holly Parkway property where we had the conceptual, if you remember, the Sahihis brought a proposed planned development on Holly Parkway there south of Dollar General. And we did a concept plan with them, and they're coming back with a detailed plan. that detailed plan becomes the ruling plan development district zoning for that area. And once it's adopted, and that's why it's so important during that process to really make sure you have every component that you want in that plan development, because if it's not specifically detailed in there, then it's not a part of the zoning, even if it's listed as a component of a plan development district in the zoning ordinance. So hopefully that makes some sense. So case in point, there's been some misunderstanding and some questions and concerns regarding underground utilities. That is a component within the plan development district that it lists underground utilities. But if it's not specifically included in a plan development district, then it cannot be enforced as being required. So what happened with Bywell is that as I've been going through the research, and this is my understanding from the research I've done, was the original developer planned to do underground, because in phase 1 in Bywell, the utilities are underground. However, it's my understanding he passed away, and plan, phase 2 was going to be the next one. It was never included in 9611 in the ordinance when we annexed it in, and it was zone plan development district number 1. In 9611, those 27 components, it does not include underground utilities, even though that was the original developer's intention. It wasn't there. So fast forward years down the road, developer number 2 comes along trying to, develop that property, and that, it wasn't a requirement. So it went through, and that's why you have utilities that are above ground in phase 2. That makes sense? Any questions there? And that's, I mean, in a nutshell, and trust me, I've probably spent, I would not be exaggerating if I said I spent 80 hours of research on this. So, and I have talked with our attorney several times. We've got documents from the courthouse that we've found. So, it is a unique situation. So that is really kind of in a nutshell what is going on with Bywell Estates. Are there any questions?
Cynthia.
Yes.
So the emails that some of us are receiving, so is that portion of that being taken care of?
Well, yes, and I explained that in an email I thought to you, or maybe I had a conversation with you, I thought, but why, a constituent singled out a few of you on planning and zoning, I'm not quite sure. But that's, what happened. There have been some complaints out there about some of those items. Council, staff has addressed those. We have, our police department has been out there several times. We have actually brought this to council. The mayor has spent time on this as well. I met with the mayor and the police chief on some of these items. One of the issues is noise. We do have a noise ordinance. However, right now we did discuss, we could add decibel levels. So we could put some parameters, quantitative parameters around what noise would be. However, at the advice of our police chief, by the time they get called out there, and that's anywhere, if it's loud music or something like that, if they're gone, then it's kind of hard to, take your decibel reader when they're gone. If it were a music thing, that might be one thing, but I think, they just felt like you would still have the challenge of catching them in the act. So, you know, it is point in case if people have complaints they need, and, you know, and it's that, you know, and you need to call, you know, it's traffic related, which is where the PD comes in, then you would call dispatch and, you know, have the police come out and handle that complaint.
Okay, thank you.
And that was done. And like I said, the council has, it was brought to council and council did discuss, and I think they agreed with the police chief that, you know, adding a decibel, you know, parameters to the noise ordinance might be difficult, just as difficult to enforce as if, you know, we didn't have one. So that was the consensus. And just to, let me just state this, they, by and large, I mean, when these motorbikes were on the street, we, you know, police could address it, and they did address it, and they were able to curb that occurrence. And, but when they're on private property, which is what is happening, they're riding dirt bikes on private property, you can't, that's something else that, you know, our ordinances as they are, you know, we're not addressing those. Our ordinances don't say anything about that.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Are there any other questions I can answer?
Cynthia, this is Steve. I've had just a couple thoughts, kind of to reinforce. We've also had complaints from that particular neighborhood on a cement plant next door to them, and there's nothing the city can do on that because the cement plant is not in the city limits. Is that correct?
That is correct. And unfortunately, that is a very common problem where you have, you know, uses of property that are outside the city limits. And it really comes down to, when you think about it this way, it really makes sense, because if you have cities that can regulate to a large degree property where the property owner can't vote for the representative, so people in the ETJ cannot vote for their representatives on council, it's called representative government, then they shouldn't be making laws that impact them. And so that's the legality of how that happens. Now, that being the case, there were efforts made. I know the former mayor contacted the state representative and tried to get some help with some potential legislation. But it's a challenging situation. Now, TCEQ, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, they do have to adhere to rules and regs promulgated by the legislature that the TCEQ is responsible for enforcing. So complaints can be made to the TCEQ by the residents, but if they're in compliance with all of those things, then the TCEQ can't do anything. And that's where state law would have to change to allow TCEQ that authority to make sure that they comply with, you know, stricter requirements, whatever those may be.
Thank you. My other thought too is on the underground utility portion. With phase 3 coming in, is there anything that the people in Bywell can try and accomplish to make sure those maybe go underground? Or is that just?
The only thing there, you know, the owner of that property would have to apply for an amendment, right? If he wanted to amend it. But right now, the Planned Development District is what it is and doesn't require that. So the city can't go in and arbitrarily change that.
Okay.
Now, you know,
since he's already bought the land, he's also bought the development agreement that goes with it.
Well, the zoning.
Yeah.
The zoning, I mean, the zoning that is there is the zoning. So the Planned Development District zoning, which is 2008-01, is essentially zoning plus our, you know, our ordinances.
Yeah. And he knows that when he bought the land, and that's what he's got to go by. So there you go.
And he may well, you know, I mean, staff can talk. I mean, I have actually had some conversations with him. You know, he may well, you know, volunteer to do that. So, you know, I'm definitely gonna, you know, once he actually gets serious about developing it and, you know, all of that, and we have these conversations, I mean, I'll definitely communicate that with him.
Terrific. That's a lot of work, but I think was very informative for all of us. Appreciate it, Cynthia. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments? Then we will move on with our regular agenda, new business. Item E, discussion and any necessary action regarding rescheduling the regularly scheduled Monday, July 5th, 2021 meeting to Monday, July 12th, 2021, as City Hall is closed July 5th, 2021, in observance of July 4th. And this is pretty straightforward. If no one has a conflict with that date change, then I'll make a motion that we make that change. Do I have a second?
I'll
I
second it.
second.
I'll take that from Sarah Hawes for a second. And we'll go down one more time here. Steve Knight, aye. Thomas Cannon,
Aye.
Christine Aaron,
Aye.
Christy King,
Aye.
and Sarah Hawes.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Motion passes. With that, future agenda items. Anyone? If you think of some, just email them into City Secretary and we'll see about getting them on our next council or our next commission meeting. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Got a motion from Christy. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
From Christy King. So Christy and Christy, motion and a second. We'll go down one more time here, folks. Steve Knight, aye. Thomas Cannon,
Aye.
Christine Aaron,
Aye.
Christy King,
Aye.
Sarah Hawes.
Aye.
Thank you all very much. I'll adjourn this meeting at 6:55 p.m. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Aye.